Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today, we're going to be talking about the newest album from Common called Black America Again. But first, it's easy for people like me to speak messages of encouragement and hope, especially given what just happened in the United States, and for some of you just to brush it aside, it probably feels empty. Hell, I'm in Canada. I'm further insulated from all of it. And what can I do with my platform and my audience, an audience who is primarily in the United States, that will make a difference, that'll assuage any of your fears, especially considering what is likely to come. And you want to know what that is? Odds are over 20 million people are going to lose their health insurance overnight. And providing Obama somehow doesn't pull a fast one and fill that Supreme Court vacancy, I don't know how he could do it. He probably would have done it before, but he's pulled off miracles before. But otherwise, abortion, gay marriage rights, probably a lot of birth control regulations, probably going to be going away too. Look at that VP and tell me otherwise. The balance in the United States has once again shifted back to protect those who discriminate rather than those who are discriminated. Look back at 1980, this has happened before. Punching down instead of punching up. And while I could blame the Democrats for a sloppily run campaign, and third parties for asinine voter deflection with no coherent policy beneath it, and the FBI for violating the Hatch Act in the 11th hour, and Republicans for disseminating blatant lies and active voter suppression and propping up this man, and the media for feeding into all of it, normalizing the lunacy, abandoning any sort of civic responsibility to the public by treating both these candidates as equals. At the end of the day, America, especially white America in the Midwest, who's not going to get back all those jobs they voted for, their march of progress has moved on the rest of the world. They bought into a con. Any proof the whole greatest country in the world label from outside of the United States has been sorely tested indeed and will face even greater challenges in the years ahead? It's right here! And given that the president-elect's policy challenges include revising trade deals that affect Canada, my home country, or his non-existent or outright fraudulent environmental policies that impact the rest of the planet, you can bet I can feel the urge to say or do something, even in the smallest way. If you want to call yourselves the greatest country in the world, you gotta earn it. And when I'm gonna see something that's not happening in that vein, I have the right to say something, especially when it impacts the rest of us. So, in my small way, this channel, of course I'm reviewing Common right now. What else could I do? Common, the conscious rapper who might not always have the most consistent discography, but in modern years has seen a creative reawakening in some of his most political material that he's ever created. His 2014 album, Nobody's Smiling, while not at the level of his best, was easily the best album that he had made in a decade. And in this polarized, burned out shell of a year in 2016, you can bet that I was praying Black America Again would connect with me to say something. It was dropped before the election, so it was inevitable it wouldn't have the titanic revolutionary fury that an album like Run the Jewels 3 is bound to have, but it would have had to say something, right? Well, here's the thing, folks. This was an album that was released days before, recorded months before this election. And that's the inherent danger of some political albums. They're often tied directly to the moment and events on which they speak. The best, they can transcend that, tap into something deeper and universal. And while Black America Again tries to get there in the immediate aftermath of last night, this record feels a lot more like an image and a mood of what we all expected, of what might have been, that we might not see in the United States for a much longer time. And not sure I can even blame Common for that. Nobody saw this coming. But again, that's a broader context outside of the album itself. And while said context is important to how one absorbs this art and will inevitably color how it's perceived for months, if not years going forward, how's the album itself? Honestly, I wish I liked it more. Just like Nobody's Smiling is often better in pieces than as a whole. I just wish a lot of those pieces had come together better. And here's the thing, I can see what Common was looking to do when he put this project together. From the instrumentation to a lot of his delivery to pretty much all of the content. He was looking to create that mature and modern Black person's album. Not just confined to Chicago, but looking out across the entire world. Home showcases a message outwards to spread hope and wisdom across the world. Both to transcend the world's flaws that are holding you down like vanity, while living to make things better in the grounded world community, and the controlled, conscious invective in favor of Black Lives Matter and against private prisons, racist cops, voter suppression, media stereotyping, you name it. It shows up on that title track complete with samples from James Brown and outro from Stevie Wonder, and then it shows up again especially on a bigger picture called Free, where his second verse takes him to the perspective of a man serving his time and all the consequences of that in that very human picture. And then the closer, Letter to the Free, which is really damn great, a lot more focused. And that maturity goes even further to songs like Pyramids, where his flow is as strong as it has ever been. Regardless of his content, Common sounds great against a lot of these beats. A voice of educated, informed, and thorough optimism for the most part. Hell, it's probably why throughout the midsection of this record he throws in straightforward love songs like Love Star, Red Wine, and Unfamiliar, and they turn out pretty good too. They don't really do a lot for the cohesion of the project overall, we'll come back to this, but they do have the poise and respect to be pretty tasteful and charming. He might get angry on this album, but Common knows how to balance it out, and there's a lot of hope here. Probably the best example of this is Rain, with John Legend handling the majority of the song. In the faces of any sort of adversity, they will face the rain and let it wash off of them, and it's a potent track, probably my favorite one here. Unfortunately, while the message rings all more clear, the fact that on Letter to the Free, Common chose to directly reference this election makes the defeat yesterday throw this album into an unfortunate context that you really can't get around. The maturity and optimism rings clear, but feels a little bit disconnected when you throw in the mature love songs that are all too tasteful, or when you consider the utopian picture of the day women took over, which seems like a feminist dream where there truly is equity among the genders and chivalry can be respected again, and today just rings all the more of an idealistic pipe dream, as America kind of rejected some of that. But moving beyond the context of the past 24 hours, it does highlight some frustrating holes in Common's political message that would have been here regardless. Like it or not, that previous song, it frames the feminine ideal as above men, not equal, which can definitely undercut the message, especially when he's framing and projecting onto women the air of untouchable, perfect goddesses, more ideals than anything, and that's not exactly a good thing. Not helped by Love Star when he says, God's most beautiful creation, let me mold you. Okay. And that brings up the framing of this album as a whole, and how much of it is coaxed through religious iconography. Again, I appreciate the sincerity. I know that Common's coming from a real place. It's framing, though, that can feel kind of disconnected from the greater reality of the situation now. A stylized ideal that's definitely appealing in the abstract, but doesn't really click for me on a visceral level. Coupled with the fact that this album crams its political messages into single songs instead of spreading them out on an already overlong record, and some of the political messages can feel kind of scattershot, it feels kind of misshapen in a way that doesn't do credit to how good of a rapper Common is, or how strong some of the guest performances from John Legend, BJ to the Chicago Kid, Marsha Ambrosius, PJ, Sid, and especially Bilal are. Hell, Common even mentions his disconnection from his rougher roots a few times across this album with a bit of self-awareness, but you don't bridge that gap by going broader and more abstract. You cut to the ground level. It's one of the reasons why the tribute to his late father, Little Chicago Boy, or the earlier song Home actually pick up a bit of pathos for me. They have that deeper, more grounded connection. Of course, all this also snaps back to the production, which I wish I liked more, to be honest. There's a significant amount of whiplash across a number of styles, from adult contemporary soul and R&B that's a little bit smoother to more rough-edged gospel or hip-hop cuts. And while I appreciate that so much of it is designed to feel off-kilter, choppy, unsteady, cultivate that angrier mood, it doesn't always coalesce as well as I was hoping in terms of a sonic level. Take the opener, Joy and Peace, with that thin film of discordant synth and organ against the dirtier beat against a jazz-inspired jittery guitar. Pair it with lyrics and tones looking for gospel swell, it just doesn't really work for me. The anger clicks into place much more strongly on the title track, with the low pianos that break into sandy and flattened drums with hints of string swell that eventually breaks apart for Stevie's outro. It's definitely an overloaded song lyrically, but it does have an intensity that deserves not to get completely neutered by the deep sandy pop of the beat on Love Star right after it, with the R&B coos, the twinkling synths, the horns, and some of Common's corniest bars on the album. The two really should not have been placed side by side that early on the record. It'd be done a lot better in the closing track, Letter to the Free, which not just feels more focused in its piano melody, its rattling march beat, and its richer blues chorus, but those woodwinds, they feel like a weird choice for the vibe, which is the same case for Little Chicago Boy, which is a solid deeper beat and guitar melody, but those dinky hollow synths in the background don't flatter the gospel vibe at all on the back track. A damn shame, because Tasha Cobbs, she sounds great here, she's killing it, and that's where we get to the production inconsistencies as a whole. Pyramids has some great great bars against the live drums, but that synth tone, it sounds imported from a Sierra adventure game from the mid-90s. It doesn't really work here. Similar case on a bigger picture called Free, where the cymbal touch pop against the inert melody and that unstable wobble of bass. Great bars, but the hook and blend just feel clumsy as hell. It doesn't connect. Say what you will about Rain for catering to a more conventional neo-soul sound with the pianos and strings. The sounds work for both John Legend's excellent delivery, he sounds fantastic on this song, and a lot of Common's bars. It's a fit that they work well together. They proved it on that Oscar-winning song Glory, and it's all the more proof here. The rest of this though, look, I can't say if I'm going to like or dislike this more with time or more distance from the events of, well, last night. But let me stress that Black America Again has problems even removed from that. It's misshapen, it's overloaded, the product of good intentions and ideas against some questionable execution. Common might be one of the most seasoned, conscious wordsmiths in hip-hop these days, and this really is the logical album for him to make in 2016. But between hit-and-miss production, haphazard song sequencing, and the fact that Common didn't really hit that deeper mark for me outside of a couple of songs for that more emotional connection, I'm feeling a very strong 6 out of 10 and a recommendation really if only you're a fan. If I'd covered this album on Monday instead of now, the last Monday, I'm not sure if it would have connected more deeply. If we're going to talk about art and culture though, it only makes sense to place the record into the cultural context of what's going on right now. It would have existed in it anyway. Some of what Common inspires to though, well, let's hope that America can relearn to dream for that. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. I'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. I got the poll up here, so I imagine all those of you who liked Common's album a little bit more or sought it out more, I can understand your feelings. I just wish it came together more instrumentally for me. As for the politics, I don't even care, guys. You know what? I'm going to say what I believe here. You're asking for music, movies, art, and culture, and politics is a part of culture. I'm going to say something. I might say more in future reviews. I'm going to try to restrain this from becoming political polemics, but yeah. But moving on from that, I'm sure I pissed off enough of you down there. Let me know what else I can do to improve my presentation, and I'll talk to y'all later. Until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.
Instead of nigga, they used the word criminal. Sweet land of liberty, incarcerated country. Shot me with your